What's the new vision for you now? What motivates you up in the morning?
Yeah, look, for me now, I'm a huge fan. I had a meeting recently actually with a guy called Matthew Michaelwitz who wrote a book called Life in Half a Second. And I promote that quite heavily. I think there's a lot of people who benefit from that. But I was fortunate enough to have a meeting with him, and he made a really good point, which was in his view was if you need to be wealthy, and he details this in the book, you need to own stuff, and you can either build it or you can buy it. For me now, my motivation is to get up in the morning, do what I can to contribute to the clients that I'm working with in terms of their businesses and helping them to succeed. I like to back. I'm a big fan of backing good entrepreneurs. I'm a big fan of backing people who are innovating. I think that's going to be massive for the future of this country. And I think anything that I think the world needs more people who are prepared to give up everything to make something work and have a positive impact in the world. So my motivation is to wake up, find those opportunities, find those people that are giving it everything they've got. And obviously they need to have viable business models and that kind of thing. And backing those guys and helping them go and have a massive impact. And in turn, that'll allow me to have a massive impact.
Cool. Okay. Now, just from what you said there, this is going off topic, but I want to know, what do you think about this country's future right now? Not being very economically aware myself, I'd like to know what you think about as we're moving out of this mining boom, and obviously BHP has recorded these massive drops in their share price stuff lately. Where do you see this country's going if entrepreneurship doesn't take off?
Yeah, look, great question. I think, and look, to be quite honest, I try to avoid a lot of the stuff that, as I call it, that kind of goes on, in politics and all that. I'm happy for those guys to argue some of that stuff out. But, for me, I think that, in the scheme of the world, Australia is not a massive player. And I think that, even from a population standpoint, we need to be batting above our average, if you like, in terms of being able to contribute. I think that up until now we've been fortunate. We've obviously got a lot of resources in terms of the geographical space that we have. Our mining, we've got forestry, we've got agriculture, and that kind of thing. I think that whilst we're relying on resources like that, which are finite in terms of being able to export and things like that, I just really think that innovation is highly sustainable. I think the impact that you can have with innovation is uncapped. It purely just depends on the ideas and that come out of the country. So I really think that you can't rely forever on resources that are in the ground. It's just not a viable model. So I think that innovation globally, but particularly in Australia, is going to be really, really important for the sustainable future of the country. So.
Sure. And also another thing you said there about relying on sort of politics and what is going on. I often say to people that when people get in political debates, and my response is always, if you spend as much time talking about politics and how much it's affecting your life on improving your own life, then you realise how little politics actually has to do with your life.
I think I agree with you. I think there's no lack of information in the world at the moment. There's information everywhere. We don't need more information. We don't need more opinions. We don't need any more of that. What we need to do is we need to take action. And I think that the difference between a successful person and someone who may not necessarily achieve, and when I say success, I say that very cautiously, because I think success to each individual is different, right? So I think it depends on what they want to achieve. But I just really, I'm a strong believer of the fact that we've got to make our own decisions. We've got to be able to, so we take the information that we need, we then need to, digest that, understand what it means to us, and draw our own conclusions in terms of what we're doing, whether that be personally or financially. And as long as we're getting what we want out of it, then I think that's what's most important. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So now, I mean, outside of business, what is it that fires you up? What else fires you up outside business?
Yeah. Look, I'm a huge, I suppose in a lot of ways, I love being around other people, right? So I think that's why, leadership and business and that kind of thing really appeals to me. But at the same time, I also don't mind my own space, right? So if I get a day to myself, whilst a lot of people kind of will probably be bored or be lost with what they want to do, I actually love that. I draw a lot of energy from, internal kind of resources more so than external. And I love to I love to my three highest values, right, is health, growth, and contribution. And what I mean by that is I genuinely don't think there's anything more important than health in life, right? So that's ultimately what you've got. Nothing else can take precedence over that, in my view. Then, growth being my second value, which means that, whilst ever I'm doing something to improve my knowledge, improve any aspect of my life, and growing out, either through talking to other people or reading books or listening to podcasts or whatever it might be, that makes me feel good. I think that in terms of contribution, when I give back to other people, it makes me feel good. So whether that's through advisory or whether it's through a conversation with a friend or family, it makes me feel good. So, I'm a huge fan. In terms of what fires me up, I'm actually a massive fan. I don't necessarily, I draw a lot of excitement from a lot of the basic things. I think that for me, I'm big on principles. I'm not a very structured person. I don't like necessarily saying, okay, this is exactly what I'm doing in 6 months' time. So every day until then, I'm doing this, and this. Like, yes, I've got an element of that, but primarily I'm very principles driven. So I'm very clear on what my values are. I'm very clear on what my principles are. And I make sure that I get up and live every day in accordance to that, which in turn makes me experience a lot of the positive emotions a lot more than the negative ones, which I think is probably the biggest objective that we can have.
Cool. I'm right into lately. I've got a book by Wayne Dyer and talking about abundance mentality, and I've noticed with all the successful people I've been studying is that they always focusing on glass half full mentality, or focusing what they do have rather than what they don't have. Is that something you've trained yourself to be? Do you think you're naturally a positive person? Is it something you've worked on through personal development?
I do a lot of PD. I used to think that I used to be very tangible. What I mean by very tangible is I was very outcome focused in terms of I would focus so heavily on the outcome that if I didn't achieve the outcome that I wanted, I'd be disappointed, or I'd be, I'd feel bad about that. It took me a long time, particularly over the last few years, doing a lot of work on understanding what spirituality is, understanding that whilst ever you're looking for an external source to try and make you feel better or feel good or whatever it is, you're typically always going to have a little bit of a hollow feeling. Use finance as an example, right? So, I love the game. So whether I reach the ultimate outcome or not, whether that be $1 billion or less or whatever it is, right? Like whether I reach that will not determine whether or not I feel happy or good about my life. It actually did take a lot of work. It took a lot of work on, gratefulness. I did a little bit of meditating. It's not something that I do every day, but for me, it might just be, I might be, sitting in the passenger seat of the car just with an opportunity to think about certain things, and or going for a run and thinking about where things are at and what I am happy with and what I am grateful for. I think one thing I've learned from studying people who are people who I kind of am inspired by, for example, your Warren Buffetts and things like that. But if I look at those types of people, one of the things they say is that, regardless of how much money you've got, regardless of how much success you have or whatever, like the basic things in life are pretty similar. So, we watch the same TV, we eat similar types of food, we still ultimately can only be in one place at any one time. So you've got to really appreciate those more humble things in life. And I think the rest of it is nice to have and a bonus for sure, but you can't let it determine whether or not you're happy. I think whether someone's got a lot of money or whether someone's got, a nice job title or whether, all of that stuff, like, to me, that's just stuff. I think what's important is what is, and it sounds kind of cliche, but, internally, how does that person feel? It took a lot of work. It took a lot of work to get used to that. But you've got to, I had coffee recently with a guy called Mike Duff, and he wrote a book called The Power Within, in kind of conjunction with John Newcomb, the highly successful, tennis player. And one of the things that they talk about is the fact that highly successful sports people, in their view, are very in touch with who they are, and they're also very in touch with their the fact that they love the game so much that the outcome is just a bonus, right? So you know, to be in the game is an honour. To whether you win it or not is a different thing. And absolutely play to win and be deliberate and do the things you need to do to try and get there. But don't let it determine whether or not you're happy.
Yes. And I think it's very hard for people to get to the top if they're not feeling that passion with whatever they're doing anyway. So, so it sort of makes sense that passion, or money follows passion and success follows passion. So
yeah, and one last thing I'll just say on that as well is people get there's a lot of noise out there, right? So whether it be social media stuff where you see everybody's glamorous lives and all that kind of stuff, which we all know are different, you know, in reality, and you know, people are very much influenced by the people around them, and that can be a good thing if you've got the right people around you. But at the same time, I would just look at that and say, you know, yeah, think for yourself. If you want to learn to invest in something, if you want to learn to be good at any particular field, you know, learn it and put the time in to learn it, and understand that it might take time for you to get to the point that you need to be at to be successful at it. But don't just look at the people around you and, you know, take stock tips because someone told you it was a good idea. You know, understand the things that you're doing, make your own conclusions, and follow your own path. And the only person you need to be live up to is your own expectations, not anyone else's.